And I'm going to pin the Mr. Tom Paper. Hello, hello. And I'm just going to do a quick share of my screen. Tom is our second speaker of the day, and we're just so delighted he came in. Those of you might know that Dr. Carla Nelson was supposed to be with us today, and she unfortunately had a family emergency. And so Mr. Tom Paper, our valiant vice president of the California Map Society for Northern California, and webmaster extraordinaire for all of our Zoom, has very graciously offered to step in again with a talk that I was familiar with, and so I thought it was super exciting for the rest of you. And so I just want to say thank you again to Dr. Lunsford for her presentation on illuminating the French Navy's pivotal role in our victory against the British. And now we're going to turn to Tom Paper. As managing partner of Webster Pacific and the founder of the Digital Gallery, Mr. Tom Paper helps companies make better decisions using data and analytics and geospatial analytics, along with some common sense and a little bit of wisdom. He studied economic and environmental studies at Williams College before he went on to earn his MBA from the Graduate School of Business at Stanford. Originally from Minnesota, Tom developed an early appreciation for maps when he and his three sisters spent time in the northern part of that state, often on camping and wilderness canoeing expeditions, where Tom often served as their valiant navigator. Today, Mr. Paper, Tom, will discuss how he helps companies make geospatial decisions using principles from the history's greatest cartographers. I'm going to stop my share now and turn it over to Tom.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Ginny. Thank you to the other speakers and to the California Map Society. Let me share my screen. Hold on. And I'm probably going to do it this way because I like to look at what's coming as far as slides go and sort of see the path. The title of this talk is Antique Maps and Geospatial Analytics. A link to the slides is in the chat, as well as a link to an exhibit on the Digital Gallery. If you want to go zoom in on any of the maps while I'm talking, I won't be offended. Just go to the Digital Gallery and then click on the upper left and you'll get to most of the maps, at least the antique maps, and so a few of the modern maps that are in the talk. Okay, so I've been running a small firm called Webster Pacific for the past 18 years. And we provide data-driven advice to companies about important questions, many of which are geospatial, like where to establish a new location. I often say that my job is to make industrial maps. And I feel very lucky because every day I get to travel, at least in my mind, to cities all over the world. About 5 years ago, I joined the California Map Society, and I fell in love with antique maps, as well as the other members of the California Map Society, because we share this appreciation for art and science and history, and of course, maps. I also welcome the chance to talk to you today because it's my second opportunity to see if I can draw some lessons from antique maps and apply it to basically my day job. And for that, I owe Len Rothman a big thank you, because he's the one who gave me the first opportunity to do this. And then I just want to mention, I am getting a third opportunity to talk about this subject this upcoming January, when I'm going to be teaching a winter study class at Williams College, my alma mater, on the same subject matter. So the key takeaway I want to offer you is that the critical elements of a map there are 6 of them, and I think they're as relevant today as they were 2 centuries and 2 millennia ago. So they are, what's the question that the map is answering? What's the logic employed in making it? What's the system of collecting data? How is estimation used? What's the design? And then how is that map iterated upon over time? So we're actually not going to start with the question, the first element, because it's the most critical element, and I want to save the best for last. So we're going to start with the second. And by logic, I mean the critical mental steps that are employed in making the map. And I want to start here with Eratosthenes, because basic logic is foundational to every map and every system. I'm probably not, in the interest of time, not going to go into the details of how he figured this out, like how, what is the circumference, what is the diameter of the Earth? But he did it in about the year, I think it was 200 BC, and he was off by less than 1%. And the size of the Earth is, of course, fundamental logic to the creation of any maps, any map. So I'm going to jump now. We're going to be jumping back and forth between antique maps and modern day work that we do. One of our largest clients is a private school based in Manhattan, but having Sao Paulo and Shenzhen campuses as well as online. And one of the critical things that we think about for avenues is demand. And demand is a student who can afford a private school education. And to estimate that demand, we need to use the data that we have in some pretty basic logic. So you can get data from the US Census about people who live in block groups. And there's about 220,000 of them in America, and each of them have about 1,500 people living in them. So we just do some really simple math. We say, how many kids are living in this block group? And then we say, okay, how many households are in that block group earning our threshold amount, and how many in total? And so in this example down here, there's 500 kids total, but only 300 of the 1,500 households are qualifying. And so you got 100 kids worth of demand. When you do that, using a GIS program, we use ArcGIS, which is an Esri product, you end up getting, this is in New York City. On the left is just a simple map. On the right is an Esri or ArcGIS map. And it's shaded. Red means more, blue means less. And you can see that there's demand in the Upper East and West Side, and down here in Battery Park, up through Chelsea, in New Jersey, and then over in Brooklyn. So now I'm going to talk about logic. Another super critical logical system that came to us from Ptolemy, and we're talking about longitude and latitude, although we're talking about longitude and latitude. I'm going to talk a little bit later about when we actually developed the ability to understand latitude and longitude, which came like 2,000 years later. So Ptolemy published an atlas of the world with a map and over 60 regional maps assigning longitude and latitude to about 8,000 different locations. And using his system, a map was able to be made that looked like this. So you can see, and I'll highlight this a little bit, you can see Europe. And actually, hold on, I'm going to have some fun here, and I'm going to go to the digital gallery, and we can zoom around a little bit. So you can see Europe and Africa, at least the northern part of Africa, and Asia. Of course, you can't see North America. He knew enough to know that this was not the entire world. I think if you look at the longitude markers, you can see that. But this is sort of what what was known. You also can see the 12 compass wind gods. I think they're called anemoi. And this is just a spectacularly beautiful map. Now, what I didn't tell you about this map is that this map wasn't published until 1,400 years after Ptolemy had passed at the end of the 15th century. And that's because of this thing we call the Middle Ages, which I'm going to get to in a minute. He may have published a map in his time, but it didn't survive. But thankfully, his book Geographia did survive. And that book became the basis for maps and atlases that were published in the 15th century. All right, so now I'm going to jump back here, and I want to talk about two key points of logic that we use at Webster Pacific. And they are high frequency points and catchments. So again, we're back to New York City. All these dots, we made these dots. They're called high frequency points. We just made them up. They have to be on a road. They have to be about 200 meters apart from each other. It's a logical system that we use to collect data. And so the points are important, but then the other thing that's important are these lines. And so we've got a star here in the right side, and that's is one of these high frequency points. And we've got lines around it of 10, 20, 30, and 40 minutes drive time around them. We use those lines to collect data. So I'm going to show you a map now where for every single one of those points, we drew, I don't know what it was, it might have been a 30 or a 40-minute catchment around it, and we collected all the data within that period of time. So it's the map on the right here. And this is measuring the concentration of wealth in each one of these places. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So this system is sort of foundational to the way that we do our work. And you can imagine, once you do that, you can now measure a lot of things this way. And sometimes we measure them at 40 minutes, sometimes at 20 minutes, sometimes at 10 minutes. It all depends on the question, which we're going to get to at the end here, that we're trying to answer. Okay, so getting back to, hold on just a second, I'm getting myself. Okay, so now I want to move on to systems. This is our third element, a system. What is a system? A set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized framework or method. So I want to discuss map-making technologies, which are systems. Map-making has been and continues to be influenced by technologies, and new technologies means new possibilities. I also want to fold in for the moment a little conversation about the Middle Ages, because I am fascinated by this period of time, why it happened, and the consequences of it. I've crossed out the word dark out of deference to my colleague Courtney, but maybe she and I can debate this a little bit later.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The Roman Empire was at its greatest extent in AD 117, and the library at Alexandria was the keeper of knowledge from both Roman and Greek times, and it held an impressive body of knowledge for over 500 years. For many reasons, including invasions by barbarian Germanic tribes, government corruption, and the rise of Christianity, the Roman Empire fell in the 4th and 5th centuries. And over the subsequent 1,000 years, much of the knowledge of antiquity was destroyed or lost. Now, this next chart is an eye chart, so take a deep breath, and I'm going to walk you through this. The point of all this is that in mapping over the last 3,000 years, we've gone through significant technological innovation, albeit with a huge gap in the development during the Middle Ages. The first row in green are developments about calculations and measurements. It was about the Phoenicians. It was the Phoenicians in about 600 BC that developed the ability to measure longitude, and that's this little box here. Latitude. At about the same time, Greek philosophers developed the idea that the Earth was round. The size of the Earth was developed by our friend Eratosthenes in 200 BC, and then a lot more didn't happen until the compass was developed by the Chinese in the 11th century, and then the ability to measure longitude, which was finally developed right over here by our friend John Harrison in 1735. So that's about 2,300 years between latitude and longitude actually being able to be known. In the last two rows of the chart, we have one for the development of surfaces on which to make maps, papyrus, parchment, and paper, and then the last row is for printing techniques. The second row in red is for the development of world maps. Anaxander, who we're going to talk about in a minute, made the first attempt in about 550 BC. Ptolemy made his atlas that we talked about in 150 AD. And then after that, we've got very little evidence of any world maps other than Mappa Mundi, which we're going to get to, and we can talk about whether that's a map or not, being made until Muhammad al-Idrisi from the Islamic world made a world map in 1154. And then in around 1500, a flurry of world maps were produced, including one by Martin Waldseemüller. Hopefully we'll get to that, often called America's birth certificate because it shows the word of America on a map for the first time. The point of all this is that there's a 1,000-year period when very little occurred in the European world in the way of map making. You can see the three developments in here that I'm highlighting are non-European. Okay, so now getting back to systems used to make maps. We have this map made by Hendrik Hondius, who was a map maker from the Dutch Republic during the early 1600s when the Dutch were a global powerhouse on both the seas and in map making. So what systems were used to make the land masses and the seas on this map? I'd love the input of the group on this, maybe at the end, but based upon what I've read, I would say it was prior knowledge, prior engraving plates, conventional wisdom, and sailors returning from voyage. Certainly, logic-wise, they were using complicated math to make projections like this and put things on maps. So moving to more modern maps, technology was critical in this beautiful map of the ocean floors published in 1977 by Marie Tharp and Bruce Heezen. Tharp and Heezen used sonar readings called echo soundings that were collected over two decades of work. I mean, it's just amazing, from ships from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. So now shifting to Webster Pacific, we use a technology called web scraping to collect massive amounts of data. And in this case, the subject is beer. Our client was a brewery and they were interested in where their competitors were selling beer. To help them, we scraped and collected the data from 10 of their competitors. And this is a slide of an example of one of the competitors' websites. So we did a bunch of them, and then we made a map like this. And what is this? What's on this map? Well, the black circles are where our client's beer was carried, and the red circles are places where 5 to 8 competing brands are being carried. So if you want to know where are the most of your competitors selling their beer, maybe you should go to a few of those. For example, if we go look at this one in the southwest part of the Chicago area, we're not being carried, and we've got 3 other places where competitor brands are being carried. If you really want to have some fun, you can go onto our website and you can play around with this information. This one is highlighting all the venues, so I can take out our clients and show you only the ones that were carrying 5 to 8 brands. I can show you the ones that are carrying 2 brands. I can show you ours. So there's a lot of playing around that you can do with the data. But I will say again, as a prelim to the last point, if you don't know the question you're asking, you can spend a lot of time on this unproductively. Okay, so moving on to another technology that we use, it's mobile data. Because we all carry phones and because many of us let our location be tracked when we are using certain apps, the data about our whereabouts generically is available for purchase from data companies. We specify to the data company, Webster Pacific does, a particular geofence. That's the green shape in the image you're looking at. And then they, the data company, provide us with 2 years worth of data about the cell phone locations of the people who are inside that geofence at any time in the 2-year period. We never know exactly who the cell phone owners are, but we can still find out valuable information like where were people 2 hours before they entered the geofence. And that's what this map shows. The green is for a school in Miami, and the red dots represent the location of people during 2 hours before they entered the school. And what I find really interesting about this is that while there's a bridge here, right, you can see people on a bridge, and there's kind of a bridge, that's the Venetian thing here, and here's the bridge to Key Biscayne, right? There's bridges all there. There's no bridge here. What's going on? We're pretty sure that a lot of people are getting to school by boat. So, because we know that Key Biscayne is a very wealthy area, and we know that a lot of the people who go to the school are from Key Biscayne. That's kind of cool. All right. Moving on to estimation. I want to go deep for a moment on the meaning of what is a map. And in the interest of time, I'm probably going to skip over. This is a great book, by the way, highly recommend it. Esri has a definition of a map, and then so does Wikipedia. And Wikipedia says that map allows humans to explain and navigate their way through the world. So maps involve visual estimation, which is a rough calculation of the value number, a quantity of something. Maps are visual estimations of reality, and that's my definition I'm going to use, is a visual estimation. So this is a picture of our living room at home, and I want to draw your attention to the map in the upper right. That's the Hendrik Hondius map that I showed you already. What I want to talk about is that map makers in the past and today have to deal with this line between what they know and what they don't know, as well as areas in between. What you know, what you don't know, and what's in between. When a cartographer makes a map, there are typically areas where they show you what they know, and a few areas where they show you what they don't know. But there are those areas in between. And when we make maps at Webster Pacific, our goal is to always be estimating and never be speculating. This is a danger zone right here. Now, how do you know if you're estimating or you're speculating? Typically, you don't know until later on when you know you're speculating if you're not being guided by the data. If somebody if there's some sort of belief out there. There's a very famous map about, Hampton Sides wrote a book about In the Kingdom of Ice and the open polar sea. And there were maps that were made showing an open polar sea. So typically what you know proves to always be accurate. That's why this is all green. But what you estimate may have some error, right? And what you speculate will have more error. It's also interesting to consider what you show that you don't know, in which case you're always accurate. We didn't know anything. We're accurate. The problem with that is that your map is worth a lot less if it doesn't show anything that you know. So I just love this map because it has so many parts of it that show this range of things that are known and not known, and things which are estimates and speculations. I want to point out over here, California is shown as an island. The northwest coast of America is sort of blocked out by this cartouche because they really didn't know a lot about it. They even label certain parts of the map as incognita, meaning unknown, but they're kind of showing a little bit here about Australia that they know. So it's this interesting combination of all four of these states. At Webster Pacific, we're often presented with the estimation challenges in the form of wanting to make estimations where the granularity of data is not sufficient. Again, in the interest of time, I'm going to move over this, but this is what we get in America, and this is what we get in China. This is Shenzhen, and they're exactly the same size. Here we get about 580 polygons. Here we get 6. And so we have to go through some complicated math using the presence of roads in particular, as well as parks and industrial land, to make an estimate like this. So here we've taken this and we've made an estimate. You could argue it's speculation, but I think we were guided by the data. And so we're more likely to be an estimate. Hold on just a second. Sorry, I have a contractor in my house. Sorry about that.
Make sure you're okay.
Courtney, how are we doing for time here?
You're good. You're at 10:46.
So what, how many more minutes? What?
10 minutes?
10 minutes total or 10 minutes before questions?
Total.
Oy vey. Okay. All All right, and I'm going to take stock of where I am here. Hold on. Okay, I was going to show you about design. The London Tube map is a wonderful map, wonderful example of design, but I'm going to pass on that. Other than to say Harry Beck figured out that certain abstractions are what's important to people. And then the next subject was iteration. Anna Maxander made the first world map that's down here in the lower right, which was then iterated on over time. Iteration can happen by multiple map makers, or it can happen by the same map maker, in which case, as many of you know, these maps become called something, these are the states of a map. And the example that I had here was a Sanson map, I'm highlighting it now, from 1694, when he showed California as an island. And then he went back on himself, and in 1719, they issued a map, the fifth state, that showed California was not an island. At Webster Pacific, we iterate, we make mistakes all the time. This is an example here. I'll zoom in on this one. The roads and the satellite picture are sort of offset. That caused us to put real estate listings, some of them in the water. We figured it out. You know, we made a mistake, and we went back and did it the right way. And then lastly, I want to talk briefly about the question. If you don't get the question right, you waste a lot of time. We're, you know, for my work, we're in the business of answering customer questions. They don't want data, they want insights. But that still is applied. You can apply that to antique maps. I love this map, the Salter map. It's a map by Mundai in the medieval, Middle Ages time. Many of the maps didn't answer, well, few of them were geographically accurate, but they answered questions about what are the important, how do we visualize places of both faith and physicality of things. And so you have Jesus, and then you have Adam and Eve, and this is paradise and Jerusalem. And then but you've also got some real places on this map as well. So it's this interesting combination of faith and place in a map. Portal charts are like Waze 1.0. Love them. Hold on. And then for us, the difference between explaining and navigating is critical. Explaining is not a good thing. Navigating, which starts with strategy and starts with the question, is what we seek to provide. This is explaining, and this is some of our work that was not so good. But later on, we became better because we thought hard about the questions that we were trying to answer. And so I think that's it. Now I've got some time for questions. Thank you very much. That was fun. I'm sorry I didn't get to everything.
That was fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And really appreciate you pinch hitting today and for sharing this amazing correlation between antique maps and their use and their function and their development with how we do things in the modern world today, and especially for your companies that you serve, as well as just your own personal passions and interests. I want to just open the door to anyone who has a question that they would like to ask Tom right now. They can either raise their hand or they can put something in the chat. Of course, Ken Habib had a really interesting point about, for the African continent, look no further for map beginnings than the Portuguese navigators and the Italian cartographers, especially Gastaldi. And it looks like we have a hand raised by Mr. Robles. Let's go ahead and let you go. Thank you.
So first of all, hello everyone from Belgium.
Hey!
In California here. I actually had only a comment about longitude. Because I think the speaker said that it was John Harrison who solved longitude, and that's often said. And I just wanted to stress that the measurement of longitude was actually solved a bit earlier than Harrison. Already in 1700, it was well established how to measure longitude by looking at the eclipses of the satellites of Jupiter, which was a very well established procedure. The thing that was very difficult to do aboard a moving vessel. That's what remained to be solved. But measuring longitude was already solved, and so maps after 1700 they tend to have correct longitudes. The only thing was that the ships would not know which longitude they were at. That was what was missing in the puzzle.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I was muted. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us from Belgium. We're delighted to have you. And I think we have Len Rothman.
Yes.
Had his hand raised.
I got a lot out of this, but what I have a question that if it was answered, I missed it. What is the method that you use for formulating the question?
That's a great question. So I would say, I'm going to share one slide that I didn't get to. So in the business realm, we think about strategy, like what is the strategy of the business? And that should guide the questions. So strategy, and what is strategy? So there's two things to a business's strategy. It's the market position. Literally and I'm going to literally this is like what's in the customer's head. That is the market position. And the second piece of strategy is what activities do you choose to pursue? And that's this checklist thing. And it's these combination of activities and position that should guide a business. For example, the activities of Neiman Marcus in running a store are very different from that of Walmart because they have different mental positions, right? Neiman is fancy and Walmart is value and low cost. Different activities that they choose to make, that would mean different maps, different analyses, different questions that they try to answer, right? Walmart's not going to try to answer a question, you know, how do we give whatever white glove service to our customers? That makes sense, Len?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. I think this is a very important point for most people that don't get into GIS, but also don't know how to evaluate and ask the question.
Yeah, and Len, it's so easy, and we see this happen with my younger analysts. They get a tool and they've got a pile of data and they go to town, you know, analyzing it, and yet they haven't asked the question in the context of, you know, of the strategy of the company. Like, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get out of this? You know, what are the most important questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was fantastic, Tom. And thank you so much for everyone's questions. And I know we were all sort of appreciative that you were able to shorten your presentation a little bit, although a little sad. So Tom had already shared, and I just put it into the chat. He has offered his slides to everybody. It's in a link in the chat right now. You know, Jeff was also asking if it could be available. Thank you, Jeff. And so if you want to look at the rest of his presentation, that's certainly available to you. And I think also, Tom, you have another thing on the digital gallery.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would just say, if you do have questions or comments, Mr. Robles, I really appreciate your question. This is V2 and V3 is coming. And so all of your feedback is greatly appreciated.
Wonderful, wonderful. If anyone wants to put anything else in the chat, they're welcome to do so. Right now, we're going to take a 10-minute break before we have our next presenter. Thank you, Tom, so much. That was fantastic. And we look forward to seeing you guys at 11:05. Thanks so much.
Great talk, Tom. I just thought that was fantastic.
Len, thank you. That again, this all started because you asked me to talk to your
economic roundtable. Sounds like big deal. Like, I don't know what I'm doing there. I wasn't president of a bank, but I guess they thought I qualified for other reasons. I maybe give them CPR. They're so old.
It's good to see you, Len.
Nice to see you too.
When you coming back down, I want to see you guys when you're back in Santa Monica.
Sounds good. It was a nice evening we spent with you and Debbie.
It was lovely, lovely. Hey, Jenny.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this so much. I'm going to have to start transitioning into birthday party mode, but but thank you. This has been great. I enjoyed it very much, and I hope I didn't run too long or something. So
No, not at all. We started a little late and I was trying to make up for the time for you. But thanks, you were great. I think we could have, had you on for another hour. There's so many great questions coming up and you cover so many different diverse areas. So
the one question about slides, I would honestly have to check with French colleagues because some of the slides I included are things that come from their research. And I don't feel it's my, like slides of like the database or that's coming out of them too. So I don't feel I can share that without getting permission from them. So I can inquire, but at this point I'd have to say no, just because it's a part of a team. I'm sorry. I usually share PowerPoints and everything with students, but
no worries. We're just so delighted you're able to be with us, Jenny, and thank you again for your time and your passion for all that.
God, this was a pleasure. I love maps and anything to do with maps. So I'm always happy to talk about maps. I do like other stuff with maps too.
Well, we will be doing a conference. Tom will host a conference in the spring. And so I'll send you all that information so that if you're free, you're welcome to join
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for thinking of me.
I will, I'll give you a call after grades are posted.
Yes, Tuesday morning. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jenny, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much. You'll have a wonderful time. And thank you, Tom, if I may, wonderful stuff. It was fun work. It was fun being paired with each other. I think it worked well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, Jenny. Bye-bye. And I think Dr. Meyer just joined us. We're in the middle of a 10-minute break right now for people to, have a little moment before we go on to Dr. Jessica Meyer's presentation, which will start in about 5 minutes or so. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
It's so funny. So I've been listening to I've had my, listening here, and all of a sudden it's quiet and I can hear my son upstairs practicing his vocal warm-ups. I'm just in the background. I was like, whoa, what's going on? That was wonderful. I so enjoyed it. I really do. And of course, it's not my first time seeing it. So I love that connection that you're making between the past and the present. And thank you for mocking me or for respecting me in some way. You and I have a running debate about the notion of dark ages.
Yeah. Who is that? Is that Plutarch?
Yes, he was Grumpy Gus. So he wanted a snazzy title.
I'm reading. This is another book. I don't know what you're going to think about this. Have you read this? Are you familiar with this book?
No.
Catherine Nixie.
Okay.
It's basically about it's about the destruction of the classical world, classical things, and that the censorship that and destruction that happened.
Interesting. Hey, Tom, do
Yeah.
you have the author of Theater of the World?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Ken. I was getting to that. Hold on just a second. Thomas. Hold on. Where is
Both of those books are interesting.
it's a great book. He's a great writer. I don't know if he did it if it was a great, because I think it was done in Sweden, in not English. Okay, here we go. put it in the chat. I'll write it in the chat too. Thomas Reinertsenberg.
Okay. Muting myself now.
Courtney,
Yes.
hi, very nice turnout. I think I got the names of about 55 or 56 people
Oh, thank you.
who've tuned in. We had nice international representation. It's
Yeah,
great.
wonderful, right?
Yeah. So did you meet Ginny while you were at the Naval Academy?
Yes, she was a colleague there. She co-hosted this semi-annual conference they do for history there. Just, was very well connected and did this portion of this talk. And so it was just great to able to bring it. I just thought it was so interesting that something that was found, right? These Navy logbooks were found unexpectedly. And so it gave new information to something that had been studied, but this new information, and it's not only added to our knowledge of that moment, but also was utilized in a way that was very modern with this GIS technology to give really accurate visualizations of what happened. I just thought it was a wonderful meld of old and new.
Just really exciting. I always try to put my mind into those who find these 250-year-old logbooks. Wow.
Right?
What
I mean,
what a
geez
great
Louise.
moment.
Geez Louise, so great. Well, Jessica, Dr. Meyer is with us. So in about 2 minutes, I will start her introduction and get us going.
Great.
Cursor is being.
I've got my third espresso, so I'm ready for a little history.
Well, I was very, oh, hold on, let me admit some people. And then, there we go. Excellent. All right, let me stop the share.
Tom,
Yeah.
I finally understand what Webster Pacific.
Well, that's amazing. That's the best compliment you could have given me.
Right?
Uh,
Okay. Give everyone just another minute. I will remove my-
you appreciate them, and I know Len does. Like, I've been scratching my head about these two worlds and how they relate to each other.
Kind of exciting. Okay.
It's there is some Ginny's presentation made me think about other realms where modern day technologies are making the past, making history, like learning new histories. There's this project in Minnesota called Mapping Prejudice that we featured, and it's fascinating, the fascinating and scary to learn about the racial covenants that were put into real estate titles in the 1910s to the 40s.
Yeah.
And seeing that come, it's one thing to hear about it, it's another, right, to see the map of it.
Right.
And I guess, and to know that map was, that map is right. Like,
Well, and the outrageous thing is, it was so well accepted.
Yeah.
Great point. And I think we had that speaker, 2 years ago at our fall conference?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing.